In this video, we're going to be talking about the top bar of the Boxcutter, and technically we discussed most of these tools, so let me show you. The first thing here, if you click, you'll see that it's a D menu, so literally it's the same menu as this one, so you can move on. And here you can simply see what kind of cut you're in. So at the moment you're in cut, you can enable knife and you can disable it, but you can do the same thing by simply pressing K. So when you're running a cut, right, you press K and you can see you in knife mode. So it's easier than actually clicking here. No one uses this. Next one is gonna be this cutter option. So literally that section here. And then you got side click for endgun. So if you're in endgun mode, you're gonna see options here. If you're in a different cutter, you'll see different options, right? Like draw line, for example, for the box, etc. And this one is for the origin of the cutter. So these options, right? It's the same thing. Now this one is new. I mean, it's not new. It's not in the D menu. That's what I mean. So this option actually is quite outdated, and documentation doesn't really cover everything here. And some of these options, I think, do not work as intended. But I'll tell you what it is. These basically are presets for running cuts. So let me show you. Let's say I'm in a box cut, right? So in a box cut, right? And I can specify here what's going to be the default operation run with the cutter. So when you draw a cut, by default, it's just a cut, right? But you could set it to one of these options. Now, in Blender 4.3, not all of the tooltips are working. And in Blender 4.1, none of these tooltips is working. So, but for instance, here you can see clearly that's a mirror, right? So if you click that and you run a cut, it's going to be mirrored. I don't really find this useful at all, really, because it's a little bit fiddly. It's kind of pre-baked, so I prefer to run a cut, right, and then grab my cube, alt text with hard ups and mirror it. I mean, it just makes no sense for me to use these tools at all. So you got other presets here like rotation, solidify, array, and all that, or like bevel, for example, which is I think this one. So let's try that. And there you go, it comes with a bevel, right? So well, I have to cut on this side because it's mirrored to the left side, right? So there you go, comes with a bevel. You could obviously adjust it, right? So you can press B and adjust it, etc. But why would I need that when I can just press B, And then every single cutter is going to be coming with that bevel. So I'm going to turn it off. Now this one, shift operation, what it will do is when you run an operation and hold shift, then Boxcutter is going to perform a certain action. Like for instance, you can choose, let's say, taper, right? So I'm going to run a cut and then hold shift, and you can see I can taper my cut. This could be useful when you're running multiple cuts and you want to apply similar effects, like for instance, solidification, right? So this one. So I'll run a cut, right, and hold shift, I can solidify it. But honestly, I can just press T, So, I mean, it's just a choice. I think it's just more of a gimmick than a useful tool. And some of these tools don't work at all. Like, for example, this one is a grid, right? So that's a grid, and it doesn't really work. So if you want a grid, just go here, enable grid, and then you have a grid, right? So I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be doing, to be honest, and I don't think anyone does. So let's just move on. Now this tool is actually quite interesting, and it also has a hidden tool in it. If you, for example, hold shift and click, you will open new menu here, and we're going to talk about these. They could be useful. So first of all, let's talk about what's this. It's a release lock. So let's click that and see how this works. Let me just shift it to a normal cut. I'm going to run a cut, right? And you see my cutter is paused. So what this tool will do, it will automatically enter the paused state. And when you click one more time, it's going to execute the cut. So again, I'm just gonna run a cut. Now I'm gonna release the left mouse button and it's going to pause it automatically. See? So I don't have to press tab to do that, because normally what you need to do is run a cut and then, release and then press tab, right? To pause the cut, right? But this one's going to do it automatically. Now, if you're going to hold shift and enable these options, you see the release lock, which is this one, is the first one at the top. But you can choose other options as well, and you can mix and match them. So let's talk about it. Next one is going to be release lock laser cut. This one is interesting. So It's a mouthful, but it's actually quite interesting. So let's say you're running a cut here like this, and you click, and you see Boxcutter is going to cut through, and at the end of the cut is going to pause it. Now, if you're going to enable both of them, so you're going to have release lock and the lock laser cut, you're going to enable both pauses. So now let me just run the cut here and then release. You see it's paused. I click now, it's going to run through and stop, right? So I can readjust it and then click to confirm. So that's what this will do, right? Now this one, repeat lock, is interesting. So let's enable it and run a regular kind of like a, circle cut like this, okay? So let's run a cut and we're good to go. Now let's say I wanted to repeat this cut on, in a different place on this mesh. Normally I would need to copy the cutter and move it, boolean this with hard ops, and it's just a lot of work. But with this repeat lock enabled, you can hold control and just double click and double click, right? And double click, and occasionally it bugs out and you see that the depth is actually not the same. So I'm not sure why, but I think it's a bit buggy, but it's supposed to be repeating the same shape and simply lock into that shape. Now, next one, the quick execute is interesting. So you don't have to really confirm the cutter. It's going to just run through. So you draw it, release it, and you just go through. You see that? Draw it, release it, and it goes through. So again, draw it, release your mouse, and it goes through. So it's kind of like a quick cut, You could kind of mix and match these together and kind of play with them and see what's your favorite, sort of a combo. But this menu could be interesting in certain situations. So that's how it works. Now this one is the same as the Shift V menu. So we talked about it in the previous video. This one is a snapdot, which is the same tool as this. So we talked about it as well. And this one is a change of behavior for the cutters. Obviously, you want to work in non-destructive mode because when you do, none of the cutters are being applied. They simply are, live booleans. Now, if you switch to destructive mode, by the way, I switched to Blender 4.3 now because 4.2 was actually bugged. It wasn't working as intended. It's supposed to be applying modifier, but it wasn't. A Boxcutter is going to apply the boolean. So if you run, let me just switch this. If you run a boolean, right, it's going to apply it. See that? It's going to apply a boolean. I really wouldn't recommend working like that because you have no control over booleans. I never even once used this mode. So for me, this could not even exist. Now let's talk about the next option, which is going to be this arrow, and it's a Smart Apply. Smart Apply is a tool from HardOps, and it's going to be applying, or should be applying, all the modifiers except for the last bevel and also weighted normal. Now this one behaves differently, which makes me think this is more of a dirty Smart Apply, so Control Sharpen kind of an option, rather than actual Smart Apply. And let me show you what I mean, because you're probably confused like a snake in a can of tomatoes. So let me just run a boolean here and a bevel, so Q and bevel, and don't worry about any of these functions. We're going to be talking about them in depth in the HardOps section. Alt click on sharpen and Alt X for mirror. So we got all these modifiers. It's a boolean, bevel, HardOps mirror, weighted normal, smooth by angle, and with peachy. Let me just copy this. So Shift D, Q, and let's go to operations uniquify. So we have the same mesh with the same modifiers. Now let me show you the difference between this one, and in fact I'm going to do this one more time. Shift D, Q, operations uniquify, and move it here. So the first tool I'm going to show you is going to be from HardOps. Now Smart Apply is supposed to apply all the modifiers, so boolean, mirror, array, solidify, everything except for the last bevel, because you can run more than one bevel on your mesh with HardOps. In fact, you can do this also in Blender, but with HardOps it's just easier. And we're gonna be doing this as well. I'll show you how to do it. It's a pretty cool trick. But anyway, it should apply all of it except for bevel, last bevel, and weighted normal modifier, right? So let's just go here, Operation Smart Apply, and boom, applied everything. I wonder why it applied bevel. That's a bug. Interesting. So this is bug in 4.3. You should not be doing this. Let me copy these to another Blender. Let's go to 4.1. something is still wrong with 4.3. I don't think this version is polished, you know. Now I'm gonna show you a very cool trick with, just as we are doing this, with cutters. You see, we don't have a cutter collection, and all these cutters are kind of floating around here in the scene. You can organize them very easily when you copy mesh to a different blender. If you have hardops installed, by going to Q, then going to manage, settings, then control click on manage, which is going to take all these cutters and evict them to a cutter collection. Nifty trick. In any way, so let's go back, right? So here I'm going to run a multiply. So Q, and let's go to operations and multiply. And it also applied the bevel. This is interesting. You should not be doing this. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that we copied. So Shift D from this object. Let me run a clean cube. Let's see. Now we see running experiments. So when you have problems like this with hardops and Boxcutter, you need to figure out what the hell is going on. So let's just run a cut. Let's run a bevel, right? Press 1 to change profile, Q and Alt on sharpen to get weighted normals, and let's run a mirror. So this is the same stack of modifiers, right? Identical to this one, right? Except for, oh yeah, this is the same thing, okay? Same modifier, good. So now let's run a multiply here, so operations and multiply. It also applied the bevel. This is interesting. That is a bug. I wonder why is it doing this? Because it's not supposed to be applying a bevel. I'm going to actually report this to Master Xeon, but something is severely wrong in here. Let me just clean this up. In fact, hang on a second, I have an idea. Let's just clean all these. Let's clean the scene. Maybe there's something wrong with the Blender itself. Just 4.1, right? Okay, let's run this again. Cube, right? Let's run a bevel, boolean here. Let's run a bevel. Press 1 for the different profile. Q, Alt click on sharpen, Alt X. And we got the same stack of modifiers, correct? Gucci. Now let's just try to apply multiply to this one. So multiply. Yeah, this is definitely bugged. Something is not right here. And I think this could be related to the issue with, with the auto smooth. Let's try this in 4.0, which is actually before the auto smooth became a modifier. So I see we're troubleshooting in a course. How about that? So let's just go here and let's enable Boxcutter. Let's run a cut. Let's run a bevel, right? And then let's run weighted normals, Alt X for mirror, and hang on a second, this mirror didn't work. There we go. And you see we don't have auto smooth because auto smooth in 4.0 is in here. It's not a modifier, it's just a mesh state. So now let's go to modifiers and try to apply that. So Q operations multiply, and that's a correct behavior. Something is not right with the multiply and auto smooth modifier. They had a massive problem, updating hardops to the new version of Blender. This is why actually a lot of us keep the 4.0 Blender. This is one of the most stable versions, but maybe they'll fix it. Let me just try this one more time in 4.4 alpha and see if things have changed. So let's just run a cube, right? Then we're gonna run a boolean, then we're gonna run a bevel, press 1 for different profile and mirror. Let's go to modifiers and let me see if this is gonna work. So let's go to Q menu and Alt click here. Yeah, that's definitely a bug. Okay, I'm gonna be reporting this to Master Xeon because this is definitely not the intended behavior. So bevel should be retained because applying bevel is just an absolute nuttery. You don't want to apply this structural bevel to your mesh. So that's a correct behavior of, of multiply. Now let me just copy this. So Shift D. Let's apply uniquify here, and let's move this mesh here. I'm gonna do it one more time. Apply uniquify again, so operations uniquify, and move this in here. So multiply here worked as intended, right? Multiply, we got bevel and weighted normal. Now we're gonna add a mirror to this stack here. So let's run a mirror, and let's change the mirror from cursor to active origin, and let's run a mirror, right? So we're gonna have a mirror on this mesh, which for some reason doesn't show. Hang on a second. Oh, this is a flip mirror. Let's go to modifier. Don't worry about any of these. I'm going to be explaining all these options. This is all hard ops. So I'm just, trying to figure out this multiply with you here. So like I said, with troubleshooting, this is actually good training for you because that's what you're supposed to be doing when something isn't working, okay? This could be very often happening that, new Blender comes up or some version of Blender doesn't really work with an add-on, or some add-ons have conflicts, and you're going to have problems like this all the time. So you need to figure out you need to know how to troubleshoot them, right? How to figure out, what's the problem, and if it's your Blender, or is it an add-on, or is it something else, right? So we got a mirror in this one, right? So you got a mirror, boolean, bevel. Okay, so now let's run this one, and I guarantee you that this multiply will not apply mirror as it should, right? So watch. See that? Mirror stays. So this multiply, that's what I was trying to drive here, is actually the same as Q and Control click on sharpen. Literally the same C# apply. So that's not a multiply, that's a C# and apply, which is kind of a dirty way of applying modifiers. And if you don't know what you're doing, don't use it. It's going to apply only booleans. And if you have a complicated stack of modifiers with arrays and stuff, it's going to be a disaster because the order of modifiers can shift and you're going to end up with a mess and you will have no idea what's going on. So always use multiply. Just make sure after you apply it with multiply, check if the bevels aren't applied, okay? Because, that's going to be an absolute disaster. So again, this is the same as this, C# and apply, right? So the old style of multiply, the C# and apply existed before this multiply was a thing, right? So we used to apply stuff like this, all the booleans, and then they came up with a multiply. So this, I think it's a remnant of the old behavior. That's what it is. Anyway, that was a long digression, but I hope you learned something interesting. So you see, sometimes, just to re-emphasize, things do not work as intended in specific versions. This is why, again, in the beginning, I showed you I'm using 6 or 7 versions of Blender, because I never know, what's going to be working or not working in the new version. So I have my stable, solid, verified, and a veteran sort of a version of Blender I don't touch. Right? I just don't update it. I don't touch it. I don't even look at it. I just work in it, right? So that's what you need to do. Okay, now this one is a massive menu. We're going to be talking about it in advanced section. Honestly, once I set it up, I don't touch it at all. So like I showed you in the beginning, I just turn this on and I'm done forever. I don't even go here anymore. But I will show you what kind of options you have here, because maybe something's gonna be, interesting to you, right? Now this one is for when you're struggling with FPS in your viewport. So when you have difficulties and Blender is slowing down, you have a lot of different modifiers, a lot of booleans, a lot of objects, a lot of bevels, Blender can start getting a bit sluggish. So when you're gonna be drawing a kata like this animation, this could slow things down. It's going to be really difficult to draw booleans, right? What you want to do is you want to turn this off, and then you will not see the animation. You will just see the result, right? The end result. But remember, you can always recover this by Q ever scroll and just move it around, right? And, adjust your cutter. So this is what this is for. This is obviously a Boxcutter version, and this one is for help. If you control click that, you're gonna open Discord community, and if you shift click that, you should be visiting Box Docs, but it doesn't work. This link is broken. I actually recommend you do this and go here to Hard Ops menu, click on this globe like I showed you in the intro section, and you get all the links in here, all of them. The Discord, the documentation, our website, our YouTube channels, and all kinds of other resources are here. So use this because this actually works, okay? So this would conclude the Boxcutter Essentials. I hope by now you have pretty decent grasp on the add-on. And in next section, we're going to be talking about hard ops. And after that, we're going to dive into more practical things. We're going to be designing stuff using these add-ons. So you're going to learn how to use all these tools in conjunction with one another. And you will see that most of these tools in the menu and in here are toys that no one is actually using. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.